That says stream is healthy, so I think we're good to go. Yeah, all right. There we go. It just updated. All right, sorry about that, you guys. I just like waiting for everything to catch up. All right, now I can see that I'm connected. I can see all of you here. Awesome. Okay. Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, everybody. So I've really enjoyed these Neville and Chill sessions, and I've been missing them. So I'm excited to be back and have another chance to talk about it. The title of tonight's one is Mystery School Neville. And I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into it. I can see your chats now, so I'll be keeping an eye and we'll make sure this is engaging as a conversation. So feel free to chat it out with me as we talk about these things. Okay, so it's no secret that I love the work of Neville Goddard. Uh, it's like kind of the biggest deal for me. Like it's the biggest deal. The work of Neville Goddard is really the biggest deal for me. So, there's a lot of people that do great work. There's a lot of mystics in particular because I'm a mystic. So everything that I look at in terms of sources of inspiration or reminders of the truth is all going to be in the sphere, the mystic sphere, we can say. So I'm all about that, and Neville is the biggest deal to me. And there's so many reasons why Neville is the biggest deal, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them, and then we're going to kind of weave into this theme of Mystery School Neville, and then we're going to move in. Hopefully, we'll have some time to move into talking about thinking in 4D, this incredibly brilliant lesson that he taught, the third lesson that he taught of the five masterclass lessons. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why Neville is the biggest deal. So, first of all, uh, the authenticity of his story. I love Neville for the authenticity of his story. Now, if you've been following Sunday Mystery School, and by the way, if you're brand new to this channel, you have no idea, you just clicked on a Neville video. This channel is all about the work of Neville Goddard and not just parroting or mimicking, although there is narrations on this channel. That's not the point. The point is to perpetuate, to make more available, and also to continue Neville's work. The work is never finished. It's never a one and done. This is a life, like more than a life. It's a beyond a single lifetime work. It's really an eternal work, and that work is telling the story of who we are in the royal sense, like who we really truly are, being that beacon, being that carrier wave of truth, and being it obviously first and foremost for ourselves, and then just by very nature of being in the state of being the author. Uh, every mystic who truly reaches that state of knowing that they are the author, it's just part of that state to also talk about it, to share it in whatever way you can. It's part of the spiral. That's why people get really inspired with the ideas and they just want to talk about it. It's a very natural part of the state of being that is being the author in the sense of being a mystic, as we understand what that word means, being the author. So getting back to this idea of Neville's authenticity, if you've been following Sunday Mystery School, which is one of the ways that we are really continuing Neville's work with a weekly broadcast, a weekly live stream, where we're going into the most brilliant work that he did. All of it was brilliant, but there's, his master class is really what we're focused on right now. We'll move on to other things. Sunday Mystery School is going to go for quite a while. So we're going to move on to other things too. But right now, we started right at the beginning with the most important of his works, and that was his master class. So everything we do here is about perpetuating, growing, expanding, and continuing upon Neville's work. That's what we're here to do, all of us that are a part of this channel in any way, shape, or form. That's what we're doing. We see it as a movement, and also as part of the state, right? It's not that we're trying to change the world per se, because as Neville taught us, there is no world to change. You only change yourself. There is no one else to change but yourself. But we also understand that part of that change is also being vocal about or vocal or expressive. It doesn't always have to be the voice, but expressive about the truth and about how it is, how we're forming, shaping, and guiding our lives by this truth. And this truth is really, it is uh, part of the state of being connected to the truth is being bold and courageous in the sharing of the truth. That it just goes hand in hand. So when you see people talking about Neville and trying to spread these ideas, do not mistake it for some form of evangelism. Because if it comes from a place of authenticity, that's never the spirit with which it is spoken. Spreading and making louder the teachings of truth, the truth teachings, is not about being an evangelist or trying to change other people's perspectives. It's a part of being the state of knowing what the truth is and expressing the truth. Because when you are the light, you're going to shine that light. You're not going to hide it from the world. So you're going to shine that light. So these people, a lot of us in our community, myself, obviously, I'm like, poster boy for the state. In many ways, there's a lot of other people out there too doing it. Everybody's doing the work. And again, the goal is not to change anyone else's opinion or mind or state really, or really affect anything like in that way. The natural consequence is that it does have that effect, but that's not the point. That's not the intention. The intention is to be honest and truthful and to honor and express the light that we are. So that's why we do this. That's why we have these conversations. And Neville, in a really big deal kind of way, was that extremely authentic, being the light, being a transmitter and expresser of divine light, and telling the story, meaning telling the story of who we are, not because there's anyone else to change outside of himself, but because it's part of the state. Remember, he talks about, you're called to a greater sense of awareness, called to know thyself, and then you are sent, meaning that you are now go into a state of expression where you are now telling the story to the other parts of yourself that are reflected back in the eyes of the people around us, wherever they may be. It's like we become the clear broadcast of the truth. And so Neville was an authentic embodiment of this, an incredibly authentic embodiment of this. So Neville really took, this is why I labeled this live stream Mystery School Neville. So Neville took what mystics have known and have studied, protected, cultivated, nurtured these ideas for all of history, like even history beyond just this planet. Like the mystic wisdom of who we are is not an earth story. It's the story, right? It's a creator story. So it's like, for as long as consciousness has had awareness, this has been our story. And it's important to understand that. So Neville took these ideas that once, consciousness awoke on Earth in a way where our ancestors here on this planet became aware of these sacred mystic truths. There have always been people who begin to awaken the divine light within them and then begin to shine that light. And depending on the epoch and the age of mankind in which this light is being shown, the wisdom has been regarded or disregarded. And if we look at even just like the way that this wisdom is taught, we're told to expect that. We're told to expect that people will not receive what is said, or what, they won't have ears to hear it until they're ready to hear it. And that's a part of the divine plan. Like, you can't interrupt the normal, natural, like life path of a person by forcing enlightened wisdom or enlightened reason onto them. It doesn't work that way. You have ears to hear when you're ready to have ears to hear. So there's been ages and epochs of mankind where a lot of people had the ears to hear. Um, Actually, I'm going to say I don't even know if it's ever a lot of people where people there was a sum of people. I don't think this is like really like I've been thinking about this. I don't think this is really a mainstream thing. I don't know that I'm not going to say it never will be, but like there's kind of a reason why we live in shadows as a society. Like it's like the best way to create all kinds of different storylines and fulfill all kinds of different desires. Like if we're playing in an illusory world, like in the shadows and in the mystery of the illusions, really anything is possible. And I mean, obviously, even in the light of truth and infinity, anything is possible. But to create those storylines and populate them with characters and have mystery and intrigue and drama and chaos and order and heroes and villains and battles, right? Like all of those storylines require veils of illusion in order to really play out. So I'm not going to say it will never be a mainstream thing, but it wasn't born like it, it was never the intention for every human being to be enlightened. Like a big part of being on earth is actually experiencing not being enlightened. And it's really the people who kind of reach the end of the not being enlightened journey who then develop the ears to be able to hear about enlightenment. And those are also the people who have the hunger and the thirst for the hearing of the word of God, and also, to like gather in spiritual community with other people who also understand that they are the light, and then also to begin to talk and share about the light. So this has been happening since time immemorial, we'll say. And when that mystic wisdom came to earth in whatever story, because it literally could be anything. Like you can just write up a story about how life began on earth, and it's probably like, who knows, right? But when it did arrive on earth, it has always been nurtured and protected and cultivated. And it's like there's mystery schools, and that like even the term mystery school, like a mystery school, and there's many of them that are traditional, that have a long lineage that go back hundreds and thousands of years. Mystery schools, like it's a um not, I don't want to say fraternal order, although a lot of times they were fraternal orders. I'm not trying to add a gender to it. I'm just saying it's like a certain like class of people, not even really class, that's not the right word, like collegiate, like colleagues, everybody's equal within this group of people and they all are working together. It's a group communal effort to practice sacred teachings, to develop rituals that explore and dramatize some of these deeper truths so that we can experience them within kind of a sacred, beautiful, somewhat controlled environment. Like people, okay, so yes, I'm enlightened. I understand that I am the author. Like, what do I do with that? Well, mystery schools were developed to help answer that question. Like, what do I do with that? Well, you practice and you learn more, and you develop tools for how to apply your consciousness, because when you start to wake up and you start to become aware that your consciousness is the most powerful thing there is, you're like, okay, it's like having the world's most powerful laser. Like, what can I do with it? Well, anything. Okay, but like how? Well, for that you got to learn, right? So it's like that's what a mystery school is. It's like, okay, all right, I take responsibility for my reality. I take responsibility for my life. I understand that my consciousness is creating my personal reality. Okay, cool. Now what? Well, now you actually learn to hone and develop and cultivate the skills of how to use your consciousness. And so you get into some of these schools, the ancient lineages of mystery schools, and they're teaching things like magic rituals and circles and like, ways of creating these astral and energies and forming them a certain way. You can even create astral entities and use them in certain types of way, and like all this, to the person who doesn't have ears to hear and isn't ready to accept responsibility for their reality, this sounds pretty crazy. And also, if there's an inkling of the power behind it, it can make people fearful, because they're like, oh, I don't really know what those people are doing over there, but it seems kind of dark and mysterious. And they're like chanting and like dressing a certain way and like using their consciousness to do God knows what. Like that's scary, right? Okay, so for a long time in human history, that was scary. So naturally you didn't do it in public, right? So that's why you had this, collegiate, I'm just making up a new word, right? This like group of colleagues who all believed in these things, who were all studying these things, who all understood the power of their consciousness, and they would get together a lot of times in secret and they would develop their sacred orders. And then, people, initiates would come in and they would be qualified and they'd be tested and like, are you of a high moral character? Are you someone who's gonna like um, you know, uh, I mean, think of all of the Hollywood archetypes, right? Like, are you the guy who's eventually going to join the dark side? Once we teach you all of these secrets, or are you someone of like a moral fiber who like not only understands that consciousness is the most powerful thing, but also decides to stand for values that include life and that which is life expanding, right? So that's the light. Like that's being on, you have the dark side and you have the light side, right? You have like the Jedis and you have like so it's like the people who are really standing on values of like, I stand for life and that which is life expanding. Like those are the people that these sacred orders wanted to teach and wanted to train and wanted to work with and also use to perpetuate these teachings. Okay. So it's like for thousands of years, this was the order of things. The ordinary person who really doesn't know and isn't ready to accept responsibility. And it's just like, dude, I don't need to know about, divine things. I'm just trying to like, you know, work in my garden or like, I'm a blacksmith. I'm just trying to like make horseshoes, right? Like I don't have time to think about the things of the hunger is not upon me. I don't have time for that. I'm just trying to live my life. Okay, cool. But like also those people are like get kind of uncomfortable when they see these other people who are in a very different state doing things, right? So it's like because of that, like, all right, let's coexist. The people who aren't ready and the people who are, like, let's coexist. And how do we do that? By separation. Okay, so we're going to like take these secrets underground. Okay, so all of that was the way things were until, and you could draw a lot of lines in the sand and say until here or until here, until here. I'm going to say, just for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to say it was the late 1800s. There was a couple of people who became super like full of light, like very enlightened, very perceptive. It's like this blossoming of consciousness within certain, I'm not going to say like certain, like only certain people, but like there's a couple of people that stand out to me who were born and started their work around the end of the 1800s, the turn of the century into the 1900s, who just brought this new energy forth. And with printing and books and mail order catalogs, right? Because everything was like starting to develop, right? So it's like there started to be more of an outlet, more of distribution channels, and now the ideas started to spread in perhaps a little different way than what they had before. Maybe they became more available to the common man, and because they shape shifted and kind of changed form, and instead of being locked up in a Vatican vault somewhere. Now, some people got really enlightened and started writing down books. And, then there was, books started being passed around. People could read, right? The late 1800s, literacy, like, so it's like kind of doing the math, like, okay, something started to change. And these ideas started to become a little bit less taboo, a little bit. There's still obviously always going to be people who are like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. And that's fine. That's their path. That was me once, right? You can always say that. Well, I was in that state before, cannot judge it, right? I've been there. Okay. So slowly something started to shift and happen. And then here comes Neville, born in 1905 in the island of Barbados, into nothing, right? He was born into a poor family, came from nothing, not even really educated in a formal way, like just had a very um, very basic, huge family, on an island growing up, learning Catholicism, and it's like, so he comes along and then he does like, okay, so he, I think most of us know the story, right? So he makes it to America, becomes a famous dancer just simply by using his imagination. He's not formally trained. He's just like, I can do this. And so he does, and he becomes very well known for it. He's very handsome. He's like got this amazing way of animating his body, quickly rises to fame and acclaim. And then he starts traveling the world. And when he makes it over to London, he, is meeting some new people that are thinking a little bit differently. And that's when he gets introduced into some of the mystery school teachings. And from what I've read, although I've never heard the words come out of his own mouth, from what I've read from others doing commentary on the life of Neville, he was introduced to some Rosicrucians. And the Rosicrucians gave him some texts and started to teach him about some things, teach him about some of these mystery school ideas or teachings or whatever. And he studied with them at least for a couple of months while he was in London. And I do remember him saying recently in a lecture I was reading that he is very familiar with London. So like clearly he spent some time there. It wasn't just to fly in. You couldn't even fly in back then, right? Sail in. It wasn't just to sail in for a show and leave. Like it was months, maybe even more than a year that he was in London at some point in the 1920s. And so he was introduced to these ideas and he started traveling in these circles a little bit. And he started to like really get some of these ideas planted in the fertile soil of his young mind. That's why he comes back to New York and is living an ascetic lifestyle. If you remember, right, he's not smoking, he's not drinking, he's a vegan or vegetarian. He's not eating, any animals stuff, no meat. He's celibate. He's like living like this very, restricted lifestyle. And the implication here is that when he was studying some of these Rosicrucian things, some of those teachings about conserving one's energy, purifying the body, to be able to raise the energy through the chakras, to be able to have, Kundalini awakenings, all this stuff comes from mystery schools. And it's like, he came back with some of these ideas like, oh, I gotta like, act this certain way, do this certain thing in order to earn the right to be enlightened. Okay. As the story goes, then he meets Abdullah, and Abdullah is the opposite. Abdullah gets the mystery school teachings and is a mystery school teacher himself in his own right, but he feasts. There's nothing the man doesn't eat. And he drinks alcohol like it's going out of style. And we can, I've never heard it said, but we can assume that all of the other behaviors that are perhaps a part of living a very expressive life, he indulges in as well. He lives an indulgent lifestyle and is also supremely awake to the point where it shakes Neville, right? We all know the story. It shakes him out of his slumber, right? When he's that door slam moment when Abdullah is like, you are in Barbados, Neville. Nothing more to say. Mic drop, slam the door, done. Right? Unshakable faith, this man, living in this state of being profoundly awake and also indulgent. And so this shakes Neville and he's like, wait a second, I thought that you putting words in his mouth here, but the implication is he's like, oh, I thought I had to like, do things a certain way in order to be able to earn this type of faith or earn this type of awareness or earn this type of enlightenment. And Abdullah really shattered that conception for him. So then we know the story. Goes to Barbados. He does everything on Barbados, right? He's no longer celibate. He's no longer anti-tobacco, anti-drink. Like he is doing everything, okay? Everything in Barbados. He is having an indulgent lifestyle and he comes back a changed man. And that's when he starts a couple of things. One, studying regularly with Abdullah. Two, having his own mystical experiences, okay? Now, I started this whole tangent about Neville, speaking of his authenticity. This is what I love about Neville Goddard. This is what I love about Neville Goddard. And I know more about his life than I know about any other mystic's life. So there is no comparison. I can't speak about what anybody else has experienced and how it would compare. That's not the intention here. The intention is just simply to look at his life as it has, from his own mouth and those around him, as the story has been told, and just look at the authenticity. It's like, okay, very, very humble beginnings, gets some ideas from mystery schools, implanted in his mind, starts to live a restricted kind of way to try to earn righteousness, meets someone who is a messenger. Remember, when he first meets Abdullah, Abdullah says, "Where have you been? The brothers told me you were coming, and you really dragged your feet." And Neville even said, he was like, "The guy who told me to come see you, I didn't trust him. He's a crazy person." So when he made a recommendation, I was like, I don't think so. If you're into him, I'm probably not going to be into him. So he's like, "That's what took me so long." Right. And Abdullah's like, "Well, finally, you're here. I knew from the source of information beyond this worldly stream of information. I knew from the brothers, right? The greater wisdom. I knew that you were coming, and I knew that we would have this relationship, this interaction, this mentor-mentee experience together. It was predestined, it was ordained, it was written. It's a part of both of our stories." Okay. So again, Neville's going through this complete transfiguration, like humble beginnings, tries to earn righteousness, has that conception shattered by his teacher, has this amazing experience where he learns about the power of assumption, the power of the law of assumption by manifesting his trip to Barbados when it really seemed like there was no hope, comes back a changed man, starts studying under Abdullah, who is teaching mystery school teachings without all of the dogma, which really, I'm just going to opine that the dogma is about keeping people out who don't have the discipline to really be serious about serious. I mean, enlightenment is a joke, right? Like that's the whole point, right? But like there's certain people that have and so and other people that don't. And so I feel like some of the dogma was invented by people to kind of make it harder than what it is. Okay. That's my opinion. Okay. So he has that shattered, right? He starts studying by someone who's under no illusions about having to earn righteousness or earn enlightenment or earn consciousness, right? It's our birthright. It's inherited. It's just here. Hello, wake up, take it, right? And then he starts to have mystical experiences, and the mystical experiences really start to wake him up. Okay. He didn't do anything to earn them other than just simply having the ears to hear, right? The ears to hear, the wisdom to understand, reading the Bible, which, we've been getting into the Bible in the master class, understanding that it is the living word of God. So it comes alive and it shows us in a metaphysical sense, a new language of our inner being. We begin to relate to the holographic nature of our thoughts and the holographic nature of reality and the consciousness model of the universe that we're living in. We start to react and interpret and engage with these ideas differently when we're interacting with the living word of God, these stories, right? And that can come in any form. I keep slapping the desk over here because I have the Holy Bible at my right-hand side right here from these mystery school teachings we're doing. Right? So I've got it right here. So it's like when you open this up and you start to read it, not with what anybody else has told you that it means, but with eyes and ears open to receive the living part, right? Because other people's interpretations, a lot of them are dead, but the ones that are living are the ones that truly unlock this new language, this multidimensional language within your own being. Okay. So that starts, Neville's doing that. He's studying the Bible with Abdullah. He's learning all of these things. And so he starts to have mystical experiences that weren't earned. They were natural as a part of his state, right? There's a little difference between those two things. And he really starts to wake the Sith Lords. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we got to keep the Sith Lords out. I just glanced out at the chat here. That's what I saw. It was funny. Yeah, we gotta keep those people out, right? And focus on the ones that are life and life affirming, as Neville, in so many ways also taught us to be. It's all about living life and life more abundantly, which is also what Jesus was all about. And of course, we just know that Jesus simply is the state of enlightened reason. So if you're in the state of enlightened reason, you are all about living life and life more abundantly. It's written into the code of the state. And that's exactly what Neville discovered as he went from the person living an ascetic life, trying to get or to earn that, and actually becoming the state of Jesus Christ, having the Christ mind operating from and having your life guided by enlightened reason and living life and life more abundantly, not under the dogma or some rigor of what someone tells you you can or can't do, or, purify this, purify that, but rather being in the state. Okay. Now, before I go too far, someone said Neville called himself a preacher. I have never heard him call himself a preacher. In fact, when he was asked, what do you do? He says, what did he say? I teach the word of God. And they're like, oh, are you a preacher? And he's like, no. You a minister? No. He wasn't ordained. He wasn't a joiner. He didn't join anything. I've never heard him call himself a preacher. So maybe he did, but I just never heard that. He always just said that he spoke or taught about the word of God. Okay, so before I go too far, I want to talk about the whole purifying thing. There's a difference between making lifestyle decisions from a place of empowered empowerment, I'll just say, and doing something because you feel like you're earning something else by doing it. Okay. So like, I think that's all I really have to say. But because I'm a communicator, I'm going to go ahead and say it in another way, just to try to make this perspective, because I'm not saying it's like the truth, right? You got to judge everything for yourself. I'm going to try to make the perspective as communicated as possible. So this is the perspective as I currently see it. One can choose to do something like fast, like take a fast, right? You could fast from social media. You could fast or abstain from alcohol, or fast or abstain from, any type of mind-altering substance, or from meat, or from anything that's not meat, right? Like you can do that, and there's no condemnation about doing that in my perspective. It's like, this is your choice. You can literally do anything you want. The difference is, or the distinction that I would like to make in illustrating my perspective on this, is that there's a difference between doing it because you think that it's going to earn you something, and doing it because it's your right to make such a choice. And it's like a matter within yourself, right? So it's like, if you're doing it to earn something, or this is the worst part, because someone else told you to. That's probably the most insidious thing, is when you do something just because someone else told you to. And we're living in this age where other people's opinions have never been louder, right? Like, I am not really active on social media as a choice, not because I'm condemning it, but just as a choice. I'm too focused on living my best life to like really care about what other people think. That's just me in my state right now. But I will say that every once in a while, when I do come into contact with it, I'm just blown away by how loud everyone's opinions are about everything. And a lot of it's great. A lot of people are encouraging other people to live healthy and live their best lives, and, think the right way and live in right consciousness and manifest this and manifest that and be wealthy and abundant and happy and healthy. And I mean, obviously I'm highlighting more of the light side. There's also a dark side, right? But like, bottom line is, that is an insane amount of voiced opinion, and it's never been louder. Like in history, like, okay, so I grew up in a town of like 30,000 people, right? So like, the number of opinions about anything that I was exposed to on a regular basis, not that many. I didn't really have that many interactions with what other people's opinions were about any particular topic. Is like, okay, what do my parents think about this? And I went to church, so like maybe what the preacher or Sunday school teacher thinks about this, and then like, maybe there's a newspaper around, or like, the evening news every once in a while. We didn't really watch the news, thankfully, but every once in a while, like a school teacher, whatever. So it's like, here and there you get some other people's perspectives. Now it's a sea of voiced opinion, and it is a cacophony. It's never been louder, right? So the voices that are telling you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, who you should be, who you shouldn't be, how you should think, and the things you should think about, where you should place your attention, what you should buy with your money. The list goes on. The number of opinions about these things has never been greater. When you are truly in the state of knowing who you are as the author, do you really care what the other characters in your storybook have to say about things? I mean, I guess in like a basic, they're human, I'm human, they're allowed to have an opinion and a perspective type of way. Yeah, you do. But like when you start making decisions about your life based upon the opinions of others, that's no longer the state of the author. I'm not really sure what that state is because it could be anything because you can just quickly spiral down. Okay. I remember we were talking about the spirals, right? So it's like when you start making decisions or like choosing to think about things or not think about other things based on what someone else is telling you, that's question marks in my mind. Now, can you like use other people as sources of information about technical things like, what does a doctor think about this or what does a scientist think about that? Well, yeah, you can, of course. But the minute that they tell you that you should or shouldn't, like those are the worst words, should or shouldn't, like, no, we have to be our own. In Sunday Mystery School, I've been calling it, and also in Neville and Chills, I've been calling it, we have to be the wise rulers of our own self-governed nation. That's the state, being the wise rulers of our own self-governed nation. And a big part of that is filtering how much we allow the opinions of others to affect what we do. Okay, so again, bring this full circle. We're talking about like fasting, right? Which basically is like doing a strict behavior, like, oh, I'm not going to eat any of this, or I'm only going to eat this, or like, whatever your preferences are, right? So my perspective is that that's fine, but test yourself to really answer the question, am I doing this because this is an act of the author? Or am I doing this because this was a seed that blew into my garden from someone else's garden and not an original thought per se, but rather something implanted in the fertile soil of my garden? And maybe I'm doing it because someone told me I should. Someone else who wasn't me, right? Someone who isn't me told me that I should. Okay. So I'm just saying test that. Okay. So my role in this moment, I'm just some guy in your imagination. Okay. I've always wanted to say that on a YouTube live stream. You don't know me from Adam. I'm just some guy in your imagination. You think that you might know a little bit about me. You think you know what I look like. You think you know what my voice sounds like. You think you know a little bit about what I'm into, right? And all this starts to create a hologram in your mind of what really is. I'm just a guy in your imagination. Just some guy in your imagination, okay? But this role that I'm playing is just some character in the drama of your life. I'm aware of what my role is. I'm aware of what this drama is. I can't say exactly what your play is, but I can tell you the role that I play in the play, right? All the world's a stage. On the stage of the world, I can tell you what my part is. I know what my part is. My part is to remind you that you're the author. That's what my job is. That's what I'm here to do. And I do it to the best of my ability. And part of that is reminding you to be authentic. It's no accident that that word authentic starts with the same vocal formation as author, authentic, right? My job is to remind you to be authentic about the decisions that you make for your life and to test your intentions, to test the motives of your heart, right? Say only God knows the heart. Well, who's God? Right? Okay, so that's doing my job right now to remind you that you are and you must test. Okay, I didn't say you should. You must. It's non-negotiable. I'm not some guy telling you should. I am speaking from the source code of reality itself, and I'm telling you, you must. You must know the contents of your heart. You must go into the closet, close the doors, meditate, and find the truth that is within your own being that lives within your heart. Okay? So that's what this whole tangent is about. Do what you will and do it with authorship. Own your authorship. Okay? Back to Neville. So, Neville, why do we love him? The authenticity. We love his story. We love how he really broke the mold of the mystery schools. He really did. He broke the mold of the mystery schools because mystery schools are teaching dogmatic this, dogmatic that. They were screening their initiates. You had to jump through hoops in order to be able to be accepted. I mean, obviously, anyone can know, enlightenment. They can know themselves in that way and become aware of their true identity. But in terms of cultivating it and honing it and sharpening it with a community of people who are like-minded, there were hoops to jump through. That's what these mystery schools did. They set up hoops to jump through. You had to be screened. You had to pass certain tests. And Neville really, in his own way, put an end to a lot of that because he just came out and he started talking about it. And he did not hide it away in the silence, even though he was laughed at and he was mocked. And at one point, he lost a large number of his audience because he went a little bit too outside the realm of what they were ready to hear. He was still being authentic. He was doing what he knew he must do because it was inherent to the state. He was called and then he was sent. And he knew that that's a divine responsibility. Being sent is a divine responsibility. He became a guy in our imaginations doing the same thing that I've been doing for you, showing up and reminding you to be the author, showing up and reminding you that you must know the contents and intentions of your heart, that you must be able to turn your own light of awareness inwards because there is nothing to change on the outside. All of it is found within. And that's what he taught us as, I'm extra in your imagination because I'm speaking at you over a bunch of electrons. Okay. So I talk about me being a hologram. Okay. Like I'm also speaking to you using the medium of the internet. So I'm just kind of magically appearing. You're hearing the sound of my voice in the four corners of the universe. Okay. And in this moment, that's extra imaginary. Neville, he was in front of people. People could see him. Oh, there's that guy right there. He's Neville. Okay. So it's still imaginary, but a little bit more physical, right? And some of you have hung out with me. So I can't say I'm only holographic. I am, but I don't only exist in the electrons of the internet. I am not. Ooh, can I say that? Can I say that without crashing? YouTube? I don't think I can. We're just gonna keep it really chill tonight. And keep it real chill. Okay. So that's why we love Neville. We love that he broke the traditions of mystery school. We love that he brought it to the masses. We love his authenticity. We love that he was not dogmatic about anything other than imagining wisely. I just glanced down at the chat and I saw Elena saying agency and sovereignty as authors. And that sums it up. That's what any true mystic is teaching, telling, right? Because again, it's like this is not evangelism. There's a difference. It's expression. When we're in the state of agency and sovereignty and we know that we are the authors, we're not afraid to say so. And we're also not afraid to tell other people that they are too. We don't do so because we have any type of vested interest in them doing anything different, because that would start down the road of dogma and like kind of weird control and power games. And we know that that's already happened in human history. We don't need to go there again. I don't have to remind you about the history of religions that have centralized control and become dogmatic and had control and kind of this weird power games. We don't need to do that anymore. We can just go ahead and let that go and understand that we're not evangelists. We're just simply expressing from the state. So agency, sovereignty, Neville was in that state and he was expressing it. He wasn't afraid to tell the story. In fact, he made a whole career out of it, just simply getting up night after night, no notes, speaking from the heart, saying what needed to be said, being that man, that wise embodiment of the divine energy, wise, clear sine wave broadcast of truth, walking around planet Earth, being the change, right? Being the change. That was Neville. He was just being the change. And then other people saw that and lives were upgraded, lives were expanded as they still are today, 100 years later, right? 2024. He was active. He got to New York, what, 1921? So yeah, so like he was in New York 100 years ago, right? And his work still continues to go on and to touch. He's immortal. He's still that man in our imagination, reminding us to imagine wisely. And that is the power of the avatar state, the one who knows who they are and speaks about it from that place of sharing and expressing the light of truth. Really, 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 really beautiful, beautiful stuff. Okay, so let's now open up our drink because I got hit with this wave of energy and I had to say all of that. And so now my throat's a little dry. So we're gonna take a little drink. All right, so tonight we're back on that poppy. So poppy is one of my favorites. Prebiotic soda. So I say all that about like diets and like not doing this, not doing that because the people say it. Okay, so I am intentional about what I put in my body. It's not a diet per se, and I don't do so because anybody else told me that I should. I do so because I understand that my body is the temple of the living God. And so I honor my body by giving it the best stuff that I possibly can. That's just a choice. That's not with any judgment about what anybody else does. It's also not with any judgment about other options. That's just simply how I choose to exist. And just that's my general. And then every once in a while I make an exception and I try something a little bit on the wild side, right? Because that's living, okay? Life and life more abundantly. Not afraid to get wild sometimes. Okay. You wouldn't know it if you watch me on Sunday Mystery School. You'd be like, that dude is like he's buttoned up and like very serious. You have to understand Sunday Mystery School is a state, okay? My intention, it all comes from the intention of the heart. My intention with Sunday Mystery School is to waste no words. Okay, we're getting down to business and we're going deep. And I want that my vision of Sunday Mystery School is that it's reliable in that way. I don't want you to have to like my vision for this is that you can put it on and the vibes speak for themselves, right? Like you can be like, yes, I can trust that what's coming through is undistorted, undiluted, right? So that's like every time when I before Sunday Mystery School, I'm in the silence and I am aligning myself to make sure that none of my whatever I'm going through is going to taint or color the words coming out of my mouth, right? I am getting really clear. I am turning on all of my centers. I'm setting up my antenna and I'm being as clear as possible. And I even go so far as to ask the spirit of Neville to come and guide me in what I am saying. I put guards, around my mouth, around my being so that there's no interference. It's just simply a pure broadcast of truth. So that's the state, right? So I do come across as a little bit buttoned up, perhaps, possibly. People have told me that. Okay, we'll just say it that way on Sunday Mystery School. But in truth, I'm not afraid to let loose and have a good time. It's just all about the intention of the moment. And today we are letting loose and having a good time. So today I'm on Poppy. This is wild berry is the flavor. It's a little sweeter than the other flavors. I've had this one before. I think rose remains my favorite, but we are sipping on some wild berry tonight. All right. Cheers, my friends, to Neville and Chill, to the truth, unguarded by the gatekeepers, because we are past that era. Now it's for everyone, and to doing this with community. Cheers. All right, I'm just taking a look at the chat here. Hello, everyone. I see we've got a bunch of members here. Crystal, Natasha, Ramon, Savoring is with us. James, hello, hello. James, yep. Elena, Francisco, Jamie, Jason, Oksana, Carrie Brooks, Soul, and Marcio. Awesome. So Marcio was imagining, I know because he told me, and Esther. Hello, Esther. Marcio was imagining that Neville and Chills got restarted. He told me so in a comment. So I knew that he was visioning this coming back. And yeah, it took a little break. And um, here we are. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you all for having me. I mean, it's nice to have a group gathered here. Okay, so this energy is just coming through, so we're just going to keep it going a little bit longer. Um, I think there's still more to talk about, so let's keep it going. Okay. All right, Neville Goddard. All right, so we're now at Sunday Mystery School. We are now in lesson 3, and lesson 3 is titled "Thinking Fourth Dimensionally." And I Okay, so I'm like parsing thoughts here. How do I want to approach this? So, I when I first came across Neville's masterclass, the 1948 lessons, and I went through it in the text format, I was blown away by the clarity. It's a masterpiece. His 5 lessons, they're masterpiece. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? It's a masterpiece. And I never narrated it for YouTube, even though it is arguably his greatest, one of his greatest. He's got so many good and great works. I never narrated it for YouTube. And the reason for that was, I guess it's just this weird thing in my mind. This weird thing in my mind, I was like, no matter who reads this, narrates it, no matter the voice, no matter like the quality of the delivery or the, how connected the broad, like whatever's going on energetically, like, it will never do it justice. Like the only way that I felt comfortable releasing the 1948 lessons, this masterclass, is if we could do it exactly the way we're doing it in Sunday Mystery School, line by line, message by message, like idea by idea, and talking through it, expanding upon it. Because like I've given the analogy in the past, it's like a compressed file. It's like a zip file. This masterclass masterpiece. It's like a zip file. And so like just saying it doesn't really do it justice. People, I I guess I do this sometimes, not with Neville stuff though, but some people, they'll like turn on something and then like hit it to like, 2x and then just like try to like get the information as quickly as possible. Some people do that, right? This is not how this is intended to. It just doesn't honor this transmission. And so I didn't even ever make it available for it to be touched in that way through the medium of my voice. Other people have done it, obviously, but through the medium of my voice, I was like, no, the only way I will ever put this on my channel is if we can do it in the exact way that we're doing it with Sunday Mystery School. And I did not have this is years ago. I did not have the idea for Sunday Mystery School. So instead, what I did was I did a video series where I did very similar to what we've done in Sunday Mystery School, going through, bit by bit by bit. And I made it a series of, I think it's like, ended up being like 12-ish, 30-minute videos, and made it a course and taught it at the School of Imagination. I pre-recorded the videos, made it available to people who bought the course, and then the main feature of the course was the live streams, because it was like you go through a lesson and then we would do a live stream and talk about it. And it was like this very like relatively, it was like 50 people, right? In a course class at the School of Imagination. It's like a small group, we're like on go-to meeting and like everybody's watched the material and then now we're talking about it like in a discussion. And so I felt comfortable doing it that way because it honored the material. It allowed for the decompression, like coming out of the zip file, and then it gave people a chance not just to accept like this one way movement of energy and information, but to talk it out in the live streams with each other to like really like a book study club would do. And so I thought that was like that was how I resonated with being the best way to bring this forward. And again, my own perspective. Okay. Now Sunday Mystery School, it's close to that. You can see the relationship, right? So we're decompressing because we're taking it out as zip file by going over it, and we're pulling out the Bible, we're reading the parts of the Bible that he's talking about just to like really get it expanded, and then we're weaving in our own narrative. It's a language training. There's like this whole realm of ideas and language and how we can speak about things to like really make this like it's like a whole program being installed into our awareness. That's what it feels like, particularly on this side of the screen. So it feels like, hopefully it feels like that for you too, in a very beautiful way. Okay. And so like we're doing that. That's great. It's honoring the work. And then all of the people who have joined the mastermind on my channel get to come into the Zoom room and they, watch the presentation live. And at the very end, we open it up and we all get to like share if we feel inspired to do so. We all get to share like, hey, I thought that this was really interesting, or this really stood out to me, or like, what do you think about this? Right. So it's like it kind of has a similar thing. So it's similar thing to what the original class was. So I feel like it's kind of not kind of, it is, in my opinion, the best way to approach something as thick in a good way, like meat, like hearty, right? Like there's substance to this teaching. It's not, flammy, what like I don't even know what words I'm saying here. It's not, flimsy. It is hearty. It's a 7-course meal, right? This wisdom. Okay, that's the way I see it. So I feel like it's the right way to honor that. So that's the thesis behind Sunday Mystery School. That, and then also like really convening and bringing people together into a community where we can have conversations like this, because guys, it's 2024. Like you got to find your tribe, right? And I'm saying that to myself and also to all of you. I'm just some guy in your imagination, right? But you got to find your tribe, right? Because like that's the new way. Like you have to find your tribe, you have to find your family that isn't related by blood, but by, spirit, right? You got to find those people and you got to build connections with them, and you got to weave the threads and the fibers of community, because resilience, like resilience it's the most important thing. And the world is changing, and it's changing faster for some people than for others, but it is changing. And the way that we're going to survive and thrive, because we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive life and life more abundantly in times of change, is by having a strong community. It's like a cord, they say like a cord wound together, 3-stranded cord is going to be way stronger than the single-stranded cord. So that's the basic idea here. So that's the side mission of Sunday Mystery School, is convening the community. And we're still in the ramp up phase of that, but there's some things coming later in this year where we'll have our own server. We'll have our own place where we can go to have these conversations and do more things like Neville and Chill, but, kind of within our own playground, our own mansion, our own estate. Okay. So that's really where this is going and what we're doing. Okay. So Sunday Mystery School, we're now made it up to episode 14, I think we just had. So now we're into lesson 3, thinking fourth dimensionally. And it is super powerful. Like these, I don't have to tell you, if you're watching, how powerful it is. It's again, there's a decompression that takes place. It's like something is being installed. And I'm doing my job of being the person in the imagination, reminding you of your authorship. And also, when I'm not sitting here and talking about it in this way, I'm having revelations and downloads and light, shining in my life, showing me things about myself, about my way of being, about my state, about what's in my heart, right? I am growing, with the fertilizer that is being spread, the water of our attention, right? The fertilizer, the meaty, hearty teachings, right? It's being spread upon my garden. And so getting very fertile garden. So I'm planting these really beautiful things and I'm finding the weeds because in the light, the weeds become really obvious. So I'm finding the weeds and I am ejecting them from my garden. I'm finding the plants that have grown out of control, unwieldy, right? And I'm pruning them. I'm pruning away the things that no longer serve. I'm doing it. And the energy that is coming through this is this surge of empowerment that is brightening and expanding my levels of awareness. And it's its own thing. I'm running out of adjectives for it. It's its own thing, and it's amazing. And thinking fourth dimensionally, so Neville's masterclass on a level all its own, and of the lessons, thinking fourth dimensionally, in my opinion, on a level all its own, because of what is revealed. It's a revelation, what is revealed. And then also this practicality, because it's not fast food, spiritual concepts like law of attraction. A lot of that stuff can feel like fast food. There's not really any nutrition there, but it satisfies an immediate urge for an epiphany or for, some sort of idea about something. It's very fast and easy and kind of flimsy. This is not that. This is very satiating in a very deep level. And part of that deep satiation is the practicality of it. It's not just saying this is what you should do. It's also revealing some of the mechanisms, some of the and by the way, we're not there yet because we just started it this last week. There's more coming in this lesson. So some of the things I'm talking about are kind of like reading ahead. There's nuances to understanding in a deeply mature way how imagination works. I mean, it's like on a certain level, it's the easiest thing in the world and the most straightforward thing in the world. And then also on a little different level, there's an incredible amount of nuance to it when you really start to understand it. There's just this, it's a whole world that opens up. So we're getting to some of that. But what I really love this lesson, and I really love that we opened up the Bible on this last episode, this last Sunday Mystery School session, and we read the passage and then went through Neville's interpretation of it. Because Neville, I think just for the sake of brevity and time, he doesn't read every verse. He hits on the most important things. And keep in mind, I think that this masterclass, the record of it, I think it comes from notes. So he may have done more than what we have record of him doing, because I don't think it came from an audio recording. I think it came from students' notes. As far as I know, that is the source. People took notes, and multiple people's notes were compared and put together. And then these lessons, as they now exist for us, came out of notes. So it is possible that he read everything, right? We don't know exactly how much time was invested in each one of these lessons. I know it was 5 days. I think it was actually 5 nights, but I don't know if it was 1 hour or 3 hours or 10 hours. I don't know. So I love that what we're doing is we're being thorough. That's what I love about it. And when I'm sitting down and I'm really doing it side by side like that, I'm noticing that the stories are revealing themselves, right? So even things that he doesn't touch on, I've started to install the eyes to see. And now, I was doing something kind of unrelated, and I came across a Bible verse, just kind of randomly in a completely unrelated thing. Somebody had said, posted, or I don't remember exactly where it was, but a Bible verse. And I just read it, and I just instantly knew what was being communicated beyond the level of the text. I was like, oh, I actually get what that's saying. And obviously it's from that higher level of our being. It's about the inner workings of our mind. There's a deeper truth to this. So it's like it's revealing itself. There's a revelation here. We talked about in the intro of Sunday Mystery School, we talked about installing, the eyes to be able to see this way. Talked about the language training and how we're going to unlock this multidimensional part of our brain by going through and feeding it, and the way that we're going through and feeding it in Sunday Mystery School. That was the stated intention spoken over this whole experience of Sunday Mystery School. And so that's exactly what we're doing. So I love that we're doing that. The example that we gave, the story that we read about the demon-possessed man who was crazy, hiding among the record of the dead, the tombstones, hitting himself over the head with stones, which are the facts of life, screaming like a crazy person, and then arguing for his limitations. And then, Jesus casts out the spirits, but where do they go? Right? They go to the pigs, and then the pigs go and drown themselves. Right? It's like there's so many layers of meaning here and interpretation, and the compression, right? Like saying incredible wisdom, but in a 5 sentence story. It wasn't 5 sentences, but you get the point. Like the compression, right? So it's like the eyes that I have right now, when I see that he cast the spirits into the pigs, okay, and then the pigs ran down and drowned themselves, okay. What I see when I see that is pigs are arguably the closest animal to humans. Okay, so like they're they've even done a transplant of like pig parts into human parts. Like that's like a very human type of animal. Okay, very close to humans apparently. And so like a pig in the Bible story would be potentially a metaphysical compression of this idea of the human who is in a very animal-like state. Okay, so like we're God and we're man, and then that balance kind of can shift based on where we are in our spiritual story. Okay, so like the most animal state of human, the ones that are really driven by things like lust and greed and fear and like really base carnal emotions, that'd be like a very animal-like human, right? So like you could go through and you could say all that. Well, that's like a whole paragraph right there. Or you could just say that the spirits went into the pigs, right? Which would be great hosts for spirits like that, right? Because the pigs, I mean, I think you get like the picture, right? And then why do they drown themselves? Well, they drown themselves because it's the same thing as, this man hiding behind the tombstone and screaming like a crazy person and hitting himself over the head, right? It's like the people who are very animal-like, kind of carnal, very low level lust, greed, fear, those types of states are going to be very welcome hosts for spirits like that. The spirits, like all the devil is the doubter, right? So all of the voices that you hear in your head of like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, or it's not worth it, or I'm not worthy, or I don't have value, like all of these kind of dark, negative things, like you could call those spirits. Okay. So like great hosts are for those spirits are people who are living in fear, living in lust, living in greed, living in like a very dark part of like the very dark animal part of being human. And naturally, those are very destructive spirits. So naturally the herd of pigs, destroys itself, right? So it's like I just gave this, lengthy, interpretation. One, I'm sure there's other interpretations. I'm not trying to say this is the only way it is. That's what's amazing about the scriptures is one story can be interpreted a million different ways. That's the interpretation that seemed to be obvious to me when I was reading it. But the whole idea is like, look at the compression. Like I just really expanded that, but they just said, oh, the spirits asked to be, don't send us far away, right? And so he's, we want to go into the pigs. Okay, you can go into the pigs, right? Let's a great host for these spirits would be the people who are, make great homes for spirits like that just by their state of being. Okay, so I found that to be really quite fascinating, and like we're just getting started. Like the stories just keep getting better and better and better, and yeah, I'm excited to to continue with this lesson in particular, and then get into more of the fourth dimensional thinking part of it, which is like really where you start to unlock this higher mind that allows you to see, you know, from that Christ mind, from that mind of the author, from that perspective. We know how to do this because we know who we are. Okay. But there's skills, like it's a skill to develop. You will spend lifetimes mastering the art of using your imagination skillfully. And this idea of thinking fourth dimensionally, again, it's not a life skill, it's a afterlife skill. It's all life. It's a multi-dimensional eternal skill. So you're working on it within the confines of this human lifetime right now, but it's not something you're only going to use while you're walking around on Earth. As Neville has taught us, we only continue to evolve up the spiral. So we're working on it now while we have a human body, and it will continue to remain this concept, this awareness, this program, really is our operating system. Just we're learning how to use it, right? Our education about our operating system is only going to serve us in more brighter and even more beautiful ways, moving on into whatever comes after this experience of being human on this earth. Okay, so that's what I love about this. I think it's a whole nother level, and I love having the opportunity to do it and do it all with all of you. It's amazing. We've been growing something in this garden of YouTube since 2018 when I started my channel, and now that plant has sprouted and it is blooming and beginning to bear fruit. So that's really cool. It's like awesome. And hopefully you can look in your own life and see how these teachings and these ideas have grown and into full, healthy plants and have flowered and are blooming. And hopefully you have some of your plants and flowers also bearing fruit for you in your life as well. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to start to wrap up because it's about that time. I'm going to look at the chat here, just take a look at your comments, see if there's anything to respond to here. Okay. Marcio. Marcio says, I was also going back over the 12 disciples, since you mentioned them in the last SMS. How do you advise to train those qualities better and more solidly? Okay, I love this question. Tonight is not the night to get into it because to honor the question, tonight's not the night to get into it. But I love the question, and I can see that being a full session of Sunday Mystery School, talking specifically about the 12 disciples and not just like the revelation part of it, but the exactly what you're asking for. Like, how do I train and discipline these qualities like to the best of my ability, right? Like that's a whole, at least one meaningful conversation there. The other way to do it would be the other way to do it would be for you to come on to a Neville Chill with me, and we would talk about it in a round table while also streaming so that everybody else can get the benefit too. We'll see how that shapes up, but I know that like to really honor that, we have to like really get into it. So that's not going to be tonight, but I appreciate the question. It's brilliant. The stone's explanation is on point, really open up my inner eyes. Yes. Yeah. So like once you have language for things, it's so much easier to see it. Like I realized as awake as I often am and intend to be, I realize that sometimes I still hit myself over the head with the stones of life like a crazy person. And without having language for it, it's so much easier for it to slip under the radar or slip under the door into the room of the mind, right? These crazy, like a crazy person. But having words for it, it's like, oh, that's a stone. And I'm hitting myself over the head with it like a crazy person. We're going to stop that. We're going to cut that out right now. I am done doing that. Right. So it's like it unlocks, like you said, opens up your inner eyes, opens up, and you're like, wait a second, I'm not going to do that anymore. That does not serve me. Right. So like that's so important and very, very beautiful to surface that. Um, so people are saying I missed it. What did you miss? Sunday Mystery School, the recording's up. If it's this, if you missed this, oh, probably because I said we're wrapping up. I mean, it's recorded. You can always come back. Maybe you missed like in the moment, but I am immortal. I live forever on the internet. So awesome. Okay. Okay. One more thing I want to say. Since studying Neville, man, I'm like opening. All right, I'm just gonna have to like, okay. Since this is what I want to say. Since discovering Neville, I have become obsessed with greatness, obsessed with greatness, because I understand, based on what Neville has taught me, that greatness comes from within. It is often recognized by others, but it starts and is found first within. And so now, based on what I have learned from Neville, I understand that anyone can be truly great. And it has nothing to do with external circumstances and everything to do with the arrangement of one's own mind. And so, as someone who is obsessed with greatness, obsessed with the mindset of greatness, obsessed with, potential, like how do we honor our potential when we know who we are? I have made a study of people who are in the state of being truly great, mostly as a way to learn, hone and sharpen my own awareness about the state of greatness, and to begin in my own way to express my greatness. Inspired in some cases by the ways other people are doing it, gives me great ideas for myself. But I just want to leave you with this idea. As someone who is a student of Neville, a student of truth, really, it's not about the man Neville, it's about the truth. As someone who's a student of truth, you can be great. You can be truly great. When I say imagine wisely, as I do at the end of every live stream, you can imagine whatever you want. I'm just that guy in your imagination encouraging you to do it with wisdom. And tonight, I'm planting a seed of possibility, and I'm inviting you to imagine that you are truly great. That's all for now, my friends. I will see you on Sunday for Sunday Mystery School. And until then, imagine wisely, my friends, and I'll talk to you all soon.